To the School District of Waukesha's Board of Education Teaching and Learning Committee meeting for Tuesday, January 4th, 2022. We begin under general business this evening. Stacy, has the meeting been properly posted?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Moving right along to a Bright Lights presentation from Meadowbrook Elementary School, talking about their partnership in comprehensive literacy. So I want to extend a special welcome to Principal Jessica Berry and any team members that she has with us. I'm sure you'll introduce everyone to us, Jessica, and we'll turn it over to you. Thank you for being here tonight.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for having us tonight. I'm super excited to be here and talk to you about our journey that we started actually last spring. Meadowbrook was selected to be a participant in somewhat of a pilot called the Partnership in Comprehensive Literacy. And so I'm here tonight with Erica Mauer, who is our literacy coach at Meadowbrook, and she's new to the position. We have been blessed with a full-time literacy coach this year to get things underway with this model. And then I have with us Melissa Spellman, who is a kindergarten teacher at Meadowbrook. Both of them have been there longer than I have, but it's a wonderful partnership that we do have. So we have a slideshow for you this evening, and so I'll have you move forward. So if you could turn your attention to the screen, because there's a lot of information there, and I have to keep this short. Actually, Jason Gahan told me I shouldn't talk very much. So for those of you who know me, I'm keeping my mask on because I'm trying not to laugh. But I was going to wear duct tape, but I thought, why change things up? So as I said, last spring we were selected to be part of this pilot model, and the work involves intentional processes with collaborative planning, progress monitoring, and curriculum alignment to bring about a systematic act of change. And so today, as leaders, we were talking about change in our administrative meeting, and I was thinking about all of the pieces that make that change happen. And so I feel very good about the work that we've done so far. We do have the vision, we do have the skill set, we have everybody's support, and we are moving forward with some excellent work on the part of our teachers as well as our students. So our literacy efforts are coordinated, they're focused on improvement goals, and will be sustained over time. So this isn't something that we are one and done or a checklist. It's in essence, it's going to take years for us to truly run this model with fidelity. And so there are 10 features of the Partnership in Comprehensive Literacy model, which means a framework for literacy, so working to make sure that our curriculum is solid and we have a plan in all of our buildings. Coaching and mentoring, hence we have Erica's superpowers in being a literacy coach full-time at Meadowbrook. Model classrooms, we've selected 2 model classrooms at Meadowbrook this year that Erica will talk about, holding teachers and students to high standards. Comprehensive assessment, so making sure that we're continuously looking where students are performing and assessing their strengths, as well as identifying areas of need of improvement. Interventions, collaborative learning communities, well-designed literacy plans across the board, kindergarten through grade 5, technology and research, and spotlighting and advocacy. So celebrating the accomplishments that we are making along the way. So I'm super excited. Again, this is something that has been in my mind as an administrator at Meadowbrook for years, but this is really taking ground this year. And we're able to do that because we have a fantastic coach who's intentional about learning the practices and bringing them to the teachers to disseminate to the students and meeting students where they're at. So I'm going to talk kind of about our first 100 days, and we're in the second part of our 100 days. But I am very fortunate to have worked at Meadowbrook and now be a literacy coach there. But my first, through the month of September was really getting to know teachers. I knew them on a teacher-to-teacher level, but really building that coach-teacher partnership as well. And then also getting to know students. I knew the students in my classroom really well and those that were above, but getting to know those below, because part of my role is I do 20% of my time is spent in interventions with students. The other 20% is in building PD and our literacy program at our building, and then 60% of my time is spent coaching. And so today I'm really going to highlight that coaching because it is where most of my time is spent. But through the months of October, November, and December, I keep going back to a phrase that we learned about as PCL coaches. We are getting a lot of training. We meet 2 times a month, full days, and then on top of that I also have the literacy coach training twice a month for half days. And as our training, we've talked about how are we developing expertise in our teachers. And so the training that I provide, I'm able to bring back to teachers in a variety of ways. One of those is through coaching and model classrooms. So we have 2 model classrooms like Jessica shared. One of them is Melissa Spellman, who teaches kindergarten, and Rochelle Fieger, who wasn't able to be here. She teaches 4th grade. And through those coaching cycles, they're, I would say, kind of intense in the way that we meet a lot. Melissa and I meet at least every week for about an hour we meet. And then I'm also in her room, whether it's to model, to observe, to be able to provide feedback to her. And so some of the work that Melissa and I have done is really just refining her reading workshop structure. We've worked a little bit on phonics and interactive writing, and I've gotten to learn a lot throughout the process as well. And the picture that I posted on here, I posted because I keep going back to that. I feel like this coaching process is just as much about me sharing expertise, but also getting expertise from the teachers and being able to share things that Melissa's doing in her classroom or Rochelle's doing in her classroom or our other teachers. I also do coaching sessions, so we coach for all. It's not just the model classrooms that are getting the coaching. All of our teachers are getting coaching in our building. So some things that I've done with other teachers outside of Melissa is unit planning, looking and planning a unit across the 6 weeks, lesson plan development, even talking about grading with them. But one thing that we are focused on, whether it's a coaching session or a coaching cycle like I do with the model classrooms, it's really embedding PD into those sessions and cycles and grounding ourselves in the text and what research says. And then again, professional development for all teachers. So if it's not embedded, or it's embedded into the coaching sessions and cycles, but then we also have monthly literacy PD at our building. So I said to Melissa, I'm like, when we were talking about this presentation, my impact, I feel like is really on the teachers and those students that I work with, but our ultimate goal is really for us to have that impact on the students. What expertise I'm sharing or that they're sharing with me, how are we impacting students? So I'm going to have Melissa share a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I was so excited that Erica reached out to me and asked if I would participate in this model classroom experience. And I love working with her, and this has just been a really special experience, I think, for the both of us. She has taught me so much, and when we sat down to think about what the impact is on me, I just started rattling up all this stuff, and she's trying to type, and I'm like, I can't even pick 1 or 2 things that have been impactful on me in my teaching this school year. But as Erica said, it always comes back down to those students and how is it impacting their growth and their learning. So through those coaching sessions, like Erica said, we're meeting weekly as a commitment, but she's in my classroom every single day, and I'm getting feedback and advice from her on a daily basis. We are in constant connection, which I think is fantastic. She's able to bring me research and resources that I've seen being a teacher in the district for, this is my 12th year now, but resources that I've forgotten about or forgot to look at or don't have time to look at, and she hears, okay, this is where my need is, she finds that for me and brings that exact thing to me that will impact the students in my group that I'm looking at. So that's been a huge help, and just has given me that time to kind of refine some of the practices that I've worked on for the past 12 years. I think too, just having her being able to come in and model in my classroom. She's done some modeling in phonics and in small groups and in interactive writing, and getting to see the way she would teach it just brings new light to how I could, or just new management strategies and that sort of thing. And it's just helped me to think, oh, I haven't thought of it that way, or I didn't try it that way, or that was a really good way of looking at it. So just having that time built in, where in years past, it was something we have always tried to do at our building, but wasn't always something that could happen on a regular basis. So the way it happened for us was, it was like a week long of her modeling and me observing, and then her observing me and giving me feedback. And so just that intentionality with it has made a huge impact on me, thus impacting my students and getting to see them grow and learn in really amazing ways this year.
Thank you for sharing. I didn't realize how much I was going to love being a coach and love being able, and when Melissa shares, Erica's been able to show me this, I'm getting it because I'm able to be in classrooms and I'm able to make observations and take little pieces from other teachers that I've seen to put together, because we have amazing teachers at Meadowbrook. Our next 100 days, I'm excited about. We're already kind of in the thick of it, but we're going to continue to grow our teachers' expertise. I have PD that I'm excited for in a few weeks coming up. And really, I think, too, a big part that we haven't talked about is the role of Jessica in this also, because I feel like it really is that teacher, student, coach, all working together and all collaborating. And so Jess and I, too, have been able to share our learning. You're attending some trainings and different things as well, and I think that collaboration piece has been huge. One thing that I'm very excited that we're going to be starting actually this month is that teachers are going to be able to go in and observe in those model classrooms. So actually at the end of this week, we have a teacher set up that wanted to observe some small group work, and she's going to be able to see that in Melissa's room. And I'm excited about where we're heading. And I know Jessica and I and Melissa and I, we've been talking a lot about, like, okay, what is the success we've seen, or what are we going to see with this? And I think that's the most exciting piece, is really how is this impacting students, and that growth that we're already seeing pieces of it. Melissa and I, right before we came to this meeting, she was like, I have to show you their writing, I have to show you these things that they're doing. And that's what it all comes down to, is that success of the students. So before I close, one of the things that we use as kind of as baseline data is each month Erica and I go into each classroom and have specific literacy look-fors. What exactly is the teacher doing? What are the students doing? And then we can have a conversation and provide feedback to the teacher. And what I've seen in the last 10 years is tremendous growth. And I'm talking lightning speed this year in terms of productivity of the students and what they're doing. And I cannot thank Erica enough for sharing her expertise, investing in this process, but also Melissa and Rochelle for taking this on. It is a lot of extra work, but we know that it's the right work. And the proof is in the pudding in terms of our data from our monthly calibration walks. What students are doing now did not exist years ago. What teachers are doing now with the intentionality and the responsiveness to the different needs that the students bring to the table. It's incredible. So I invite all of you to come and see us at some point. Let us know when you're coming and we'll put you in the right place. But it's beautiful work. And I've had monthly, attended the monthly PD sessions as well. But Erica and I meet every week and talk about the progress, not only of the teachers, but just the impact it's having on our building. So we're super excited to see standardized test results, but when we're in the building each and every day, walking that talk is where the rubber meets the road. So.
Questions or comments? Mr. Baumgartner.
I was told not to do this, but just,
Did Jason talk to you too?
first she blames Jason, and now. Anyway, I have to go back to the beginning of the presentation, 'cause either I missed it or it's not there. Where did this come from, and how did it end up in your lap?
So the comprehensive literacy model, that started in 2014 or 15, and I should know the exact dates. Okay. And so the comprehensive literacy model was really founded on Linda Dorn and Carla Safos. They have the University of Arkansas. And so we have been provided a lot of training around that model. So we have language workshop, we have a writer's workshop component, reader's workshop, phonics has been, a new phonics program came about, but before that we had word work. And so it's really that balanced literacy approach. And within that model was the comprehensive literacy model. And so not comprehensive.
10 features.
The PCL, Partnership and Comprehensive Literacy, where it's everyone. You have everyone on board. It's not just about teacher practices and what they're doing. It's about the coaches and how they play a role in the building. It's about the principals. It's about the training that's provided to teachers. And so, yes, going back to those 10 features. So that's where Partnership and Comprehensive Literacy model came from.
And how did it end up at Meadowbrook? I mean, are you selected?
So there are 6 other schools that are, we call it in Waukesha, the acronym is PCL for Partnership and Comprehensive Literacy, so that are PCL schools. So 6 other coaches that are full-time at their school this year and
Great.
getting the training.
Thank you.
Very good. Mr. Como.
So I was writing down my question, and some of the words came out of your mouth as I was writing it down. I said, I was just going to ask if you could give me some examples of how students have been impacted. And so I didn't quite catch everything that you were saying there. I thought maybe what you were saying was we don't have a lot of data yet around that, so we don't have that kind of analysis. But do you have maybe anecdotal examples of how you have seen this impact students?
I can speak for me. I think one thing, and this is my first year as a coach, but I feel like I know Melissa's classroom just as well as I know Rochelle's classroom. And the 2nd grade classroom I know as well as the 3rd grade classroom. And I say that I know the teachers, but I also know the students. So when a teacher is coming to me saying, hey, I need help with this reading group and how to plan for it, how to best meet the needs of the students, I know those students because I've invested time in those classrooms. So that's where when I go into a classroom, I see that impact where it's not just the teacher like pointing out to me, hey, can you check in on this student, or I know who those students are. Even a teacher I was meeting with, Rochelle, today at the other model classroom, and she was talking about how to get students to participate more. And I was like, hey, I've seen this student in your classroom participate. How could we use that student to help the others? And so that's an impact that I see from my role. I don't know if you have any specific kiddos. I can share a really beautiful story afterwards. I do have another example from your room.
Oh, okay. Well, I think for me, this year has been just probably one of the most different types of school years coming off of last year I taught virtually, or kindergarten, and, the year before, being that the year got cut short. So this year coming back, I think for the group of kids we have, thinking about what their past 2 years looked like. So I think a lot of the work that we have been doing, to kind of get them where they need to be as kindergarten learners and then get them ready for first grade. So we've been doing a lot of work in what we call the Emergent reading planner, which really hones in on their phonemic awareness, phonological awareness, letter sounds, and then beginning introduction to books and writing and that sort of thing. So seeing them learn letters, learn their letter sounds, making the association between the two, learning their print concepts. So it's not something that right now I'd have a lot of data to show you, but in my planner observations, you can see growth like, oh, this student has really picked up on voice print match. This student went from knowing 12 letters to now they know all 26 uppercase letters. This student can identify beginning sounds and words, whereas maybe this student might still be struggling in that area. So the fine tuning of those planners, I think, have impacted those types of learners the most.
Oh, you can add.
Well, just globally, as a principal, the difference that I've seen is just that the PD that Erica is putting together monthly is responsive to what teachers need. So based on the calibration walks that we do each month, what specifically do teachers need help with? What can we celebrate as going really well? Meadowbrook has always been a very high-achieving school. Since 2015, we have significantly exceeded expectations on our state report card, and that's something we're super proud of. But it doesn't just happen because there's a certain leader, or there's a certain literacy coach, or there's a silo of a kindergarten teacher. It's all of us working together. And so based on this responsive PD, our lesson planning has sharpened tremendously. I do collect lesson plans on a weekly basis for all of my teachers across the board. All of my teachers, with the exception of math-specific teachers, have literacy-based student learning outcomes that we report out on based on a targeted subgroup population. How are they doing in their literacy achievement? So that piece, the lesson planning, has become more precise. When I go into a classroom and I see the small groups happening each and every day, where teachers are meeting students where they're at, challenging them to the next level of instruction, the teachers are taking anecdotal notes so that Erica and I can look at those and say, are we meeting those kids too? How are we supporting the teacher in getting those kids to where we're at? So globally, I can speak that we have seen that tremendous change just in the teacher practices alone. As far as student practices, the application time when students are finished meeting with the teacher in their small group, I am seeing them use their thoughtful logs to connect the learning that they have sharpened with the teacher. What is that skill that can be transferred directly into their writing? And so we're seeing impact that way. I just don't have any measurable standardized assessment data to share with you. And I'm sure your story is beautiful.
It is beautiful. It was early in the year, so probably like September, October, and I was in Melissa's classroom, and the students were all getting ready to line up for gym, and a little girl came up and she said, Mrs. Spellman and Mrs. Maurer, I don't know how to read yet. And this was a student that came in, I don't know if you remember this, but it just like, this is my story to share. I love it. But the student came in not knowing a lot of letters, a lot of sounds, and reading was something that was a struggle with her. But I had been in Melissa's room. I think she was one of the first groups, because when we were talking about emergent planners, I'm like, I don't know what an emergent planner is. I've never done it. I was like, can I please pull a group? So I had pulled this student, then I had seen Melissa work with her. So when the student approached us, as I am not a reader, I don't know how to read, both Melissa and I were able to bring to the table, you are a reader. And I was like, I just saw you at Mrs. Spellman's table reading a book. And she kind of looked at me, and then Melissa was like, yeah, it was the I Can book. And she said, I want you to go pull out that book, and I want you to open it up, and I want you to do just what you did at my table. And it was the most beautiful thing. The little girl sat down, she opened up her book, and she practiced reading it. And she read the pictures in the story, just like she had learned from Melissa Spelman. But it was the most beautiful moment, and she got to share, we recorded her reading it and got to share it with her family. But it really, that was the impact. And I don't want to say that that wouldn't have happened in Melissa's classroom without me, because it may have. But I think too that day it was like the hustle bustle of going to gym, and even when we were recording it, you can hear kids, lining up. And I'm like, sometimes those things can't happen. And I think about too, opportunities, just having someone else in the classroom to be, I don't know, it was just, that's what it was about to me. And this girl walked away that day, kindergarten, September, I think it was, or maybe beginning of October, but that day she saw herself as a reader. And I haven't heard that out of her since. And I see her when I go into the classroom reading books now and sharing books with others. So that's my beautiful Mrs.
I
Spelman
appreciate all
story.
your examples very much. Yeah, and look forward to seeing, where the data leads us and how we can continue down this road of improvement. Thank you.
That's good. Anyone else? From my experience with the coaching model, it doesn't just happen. You don't just pick a coach, and you don't just pick a teacher and start working together. What are the key components that you could share with us that were included in the design of that coaching model? And what do you think has made it successful? It doesn't just happen. I've seen it where people just walk in and start working together, and that isn't successful in my experience over the years.
I think one thing that we were told when we were selecting model classrooms is you want to pick your teachers that are good and you can take them to great. And Jess and I really sat down and we had those conversations of who would that be in our building. And we have a lot of really good teachers. We have a lot of great teachers. And so we were tasked with our model classrooms. We needed one in the K1 range and then another in the 2-5 range. So when we were looking at teachers, we thought about Melissa, and some of our conversations that we had are, what has she really worked on before? What has she done, whether it's through PD or been able to share out with other teachers? And so that's kind of where we started at, is that whole idea of good to great. And then as far as the relationship, because I think that was a big piece, and Melissa and I had a friendship going into this, and it was something that, and I've told her this too, I was a little bit nervous about, because it's a different role being a teacher to a teacher versus a coach to a teacher. And so Melissa and I think a lot of it was just like talking, and really for me to listen to like, what are her needs? Where do you want to grow? I do have an agenda also that I need to come in with, but let's start with something that isn't as intense as like, your small groups need to be up and running, let's get them planned. And so Melissa and I started, I think, our very first coaching kind of session. It was over the summer once, she had committed to this, and it was based on scheduling. Like, what does your schedule look like, and how can we make this work? And so we went down, our path didn't start out like we're going to hit the ground running. We went slow. And I think too, as a district, I asked the question to Emily Freeman and Wendy Hamilton, as they're providing PD tests, I said, what do the first 30 days look like as a coach? I've never been a coach. And they really gave us that first 30 days. They're like, take time, get in classrooms, get to know your teachers, get to see what their teaching habits are, how they interact with students. And I think that was the biggest thing, having that time, because I think Melissa and I had trust built in a different capacity, but we were able to build that trust as teacher and coach. And then I'm not coming in telling you what to do, and to change this or change that. I'm coming in and I want to be just as much as, I want to be a part of that learning process also, and that we're really learning together. And I think that's the biggest takeaway. I think I said it before too, but it's not just you learning or the teachers learning, it's all of us learning together.
So in my mind, there's no surprise that there isn't volumes of data when you truly need to spend time building that relationship with each other. if that doesn't have a solid foundation, moving forward is very difficult. Just another key component, the difference between coaching and evaluation. Two separate things. Could you share your thoughts on the differences between coaching and evaluation?
And I think that's something that we've always, even coaches that have been in our building have always talked about. I'm not an evaluator. I'm not here to evaluate. I'm here to help you, or like help the teacher in what they want to grow in, what they want to learn, and how to, if I have something that I can give you to get better at whatever those goals are that you have set, or goals that are part of our building, we can work together on that. There are things where Melissa said, hey, I want some extra PD on this, and I'm like, great, I'll get back to you because I don't know about it yet. I need to do some research and digging. And so I think that to me, and not saying that evaluators know everything, but they are that bigger scope where yes, you know everything. Yes, you do. You know a lot. But that I feel like it is that, I hope that Melissa feels that it isn't a top-down approach, that we're really working together. And that's the biggest thing, that it's not, I don't think I've ever had a conversation with you where it's like, you need to change this. Now, there might be some of those tough conversations that have to happen if there was something, but really I think that's the part of coaching too, and I need to refine and get better at it also, but it's really having the teacher come up with, their idea, or like, oh yeah, I never thought about it that way, or some of those questioning strategies that coaches can use also to get at that thinking a little bit more.
And unless you've established that relationship and trust, that growth isn't going to be there. So,
Yeah.
exactly.
And I just wanted to add too that I wasn't told that I had to be part of this. When I was approached, it was a choice. Do you want to be part of this model? And I, of course, knew that I wanted to work with her because we do have a wonderful relationship. And I've learned so much from her, not just this past year, but the entire 12 years that I've known her. So I knew going into it that we would have that relationship, we would have that trust, and I know I can always count on her, and she follows through, and she's reliable. So I didn't even hesitate. I was like, yep, I will do that with you, 100%.
Melissa and I have already talked about like next year, because next year the hope is there'd be new model classroom, right? And it's like, she's like, what am I gonna do without our weekly meetings or whatever? Where I'm like, I don't know, you might be happy not to see me so much.
Very good. Anything else? Dr. Piazzi.
Thank you. Just one quick, I know we want to pay attention to time, but thank you so much. It's good to see all of you. The scalability is a question that I have. So it was triggered by you mentioning when you move to another model class, how does it scale across the school and across the district or with the focus on the model classrooms? Is it expected that kind of incubates and then you move to the next classroom, or what's the plan?
Can you repeat the last thing?
How do you scale this or create consistency if there's new model classrooms as opposed to, or how would you work with, and how many classrooms are there at Meadowbrook? At least 12, right?
13 with 4K.
How do
And
you work
so-
with all of them?
So that's where the coaching for all comes in. So even though I have Melissa as a model classroom, let's say next year she's not a model classroom anymore, she would still be part of those coaching sessions. So right now teachers they can sign up for coaching sessions at least once a trimester. I can't think of a teacher who I've only met with once throughout. I know we're not at semester yet, but throughout, because I am at the building full-time. So with Melissa, I think the big thing is like getting teachers in to see her practice. Next year, Melissa might say, hey, I want to learn more about this, because there are things where it's just like students sometimes, when they get better at something else kind of goes to the wayside. And so continually, as teachers, I think we continually want to refine our practice, get better at it, and so she would be going into other model classrooms. The hope is, I think, too, that it's not just building-wide, it's system-wide, so that there might be a kindergarten teacher over at Lowell that wants to learn more and could go and see Melissa in her classroom. So I don't know if that really answers, but I think that the coaching for all is where it comes into.
And I think, Dr. Piasek, I think that, you being a former parent at Meadowbrook, and you've seen the changes, but one of the things that we pride ourselves on is that it's the way we do business. It's not a checklist, and it's not going to be finished. With Melissa, there is going to be continuity, and I know that's a conversation that will happen with the specific schools affected, but just growing that practice as part of our milestone this month, we want to make sure that there are peer observations of what's happening in the model classrooms, and to take those observations, drive conversations, and then hope to see that application in other classrooms as well. So it's new, and it's fresh, and I think we have a lot of leverage in how this plays out in the future, but I think those conversations still are to be had, but my vision is that it's not something that's going to be done in a year. I've seen Fort Atkinson in motion for the past probably 6 years. They've been in this process and on this journey for over a decade. So it's just really growing that practice within, and then like Erica said, if there is a teacher from around the district, and when the coaches do get together, what can you use help with in your building? And hey, we do this really well, we want you to come and see it. So it is going to grow within, I think, at first, and like I said, I think the rubber is meeting the road, we're getting our feet wet, but I hope to see great results already at the end of this month by having those peer observations in the model classrooms.
Anything else? Very informative presentation. Thank you, Jessica, Erica, and Melissa for being here tonight, sharing just at least one small component of what's happening at Meadowbrook, but very successful and a lot of potential for success down the road in the future. So thank you very much, and we look forward to maybe hearing more or actually stopping out and visiting those classrooms as well. Thank you for the invitation.
Well, Mrs. Solberg at Prairie is already talking about her presentation, and they also are a pilot school, so you will continue to hear more in the upcoming month.
We will be ready.
Okay.
Thank you. Have a good night. We are now in the section of our meeting where there's an opportunity for citizens to speak. Each individual will be limited, well, we have 3 or less, so you'll have 5 minutes of time, and there'll be a warning at notification at 3 minutes. And this is the opportunity to hear from the community, and then to continue with our agenda this evening. We expect all speakers to honor our time limit, refrain from using any inappropriate language in any manner, and to be respectful in their comments. Speakers who do not meet these expectations may be prohibited from speaking at future board or committee meetings. We also expect the audience to be respectful of the speaker and of the Board of Education, and refrain from responding with verbal comments, cheering, applause, or other behavior that will distract from our meeting this evening. Please note that no obstructions can be created between the board and the audience, and that the area behind the speaker and podium will be clear during public comment. Also, in order to respect our speakers and meeting participants, please silence your cell phones at this time. Speakers are here this evening to address the board and not the audience. And we do have 3 speakers this evening. First of all, this evening, Samuel D'Amico. So welcome, Samuel. Thank you for being here tonight.
Good evening. Tonight I'd like to talk to the board and administration about the email that was sent out by administration during the winter break. The email that informed teachers and staff members that all signage that was remaining in schools would be taken down by custodial staff. While in intent that might have been an order to make school environment more neutral, in practice what it did was it took down a lot of school-approved signage for clubs. State statutes stating that any club that has approved signage, all other clubs have to also be allowed to be up. Now, while this was called a miscommunication by staff members at North and West, any miscommunication that happened between the order being given and staff receiving it was at the fault of administration for giving that order. Any miscommunication that came from that was the fault of those who made the order. So signage from the Waukesha South Hispanic Student Union, I believe the Black Student Union, GSA, and I think the Equity, No Equality Club were taken down. During second hour at West, there was a PA and said it was a miscommunication, which would still be blamed on administration for not providing schools and staff members with all the information they need before those signage were taken down. Number two, at South High School on Rainbow Day, I had, a couple of days before, I had purchased a banner, small little pendant banner to go above the GSA room. It was approved by the teacher that had them, let me put it up there. Then, after Christmas vacation, that banner was removed and disposed of, which is what the order had told custodial staff to do. That was personal property that a teacher had allowed me to put on their door that was removed by administration. So I emailed administration, Dr. Sieber and Dr. Cook, to get more information specifically on the order that was given, as we were not given a lot of information as community members, and to ask for the banner to be returned over the $11.78 that I had purchased the banner with, because I do not believe that involved in the order to take down signage from the custodial staff included destruction and seizement of personal property. So thank you.
Thank you, Samuel. Next this evening, we have Paul Reese. Welcome, Paul.
Good evening. Number of students failing at least one class in 2019 at Waukesha North was 54. In 2020, that number rose to 292 for an increase of 440.7%. In 2019, Waukesha South had a total of 135 students failing at least one class or more. And in 2020, that number rose to 387 for an increase of 186.7. In 2019, Waukesha West had a total of 74 students failing at least one class or more. And in 2020, that number rose to 286 for an increase of 262.2. I'm a machinist. I love measuring things. I love comparisons. And I'm also, one thing I'm really good at is fixing things. I like to look at how to fix things. And in life, I've learned there's more than one way to skin a cat. There's more than one way to fix something. This is a great comparison. It is a great measure of measurement where people cannot manipulate the data. It is what it is. It's pretty simple, and it's pretty straightforward. So how can I fix this without really fixing it? How can I fix something the easiest, simplest way to get around fixing it? That will be the easiest. The easiest way to do it is start canceling the classes that kids are failing one class or more, right? That's the easiest way to do it. If I can look at and see what kids are failing one class, get rid of that class. So all of a sudden I hear we want to get rid of econ. Econ was a required class when I was in high school. It was a difficult class. You had to pay attention. And it also was a class that if you didn't pass your senior year, you didn't graduate. So now you have a combination of two things to get around this district report card. You can eliminate some kids not graduating on time, and you can also get rid of a class that kids might be failing one class or more in. That is just, it is one way to get around this. And I see this, and I was just sickened by the fact that we want to get rid of economics. Econ, where are we going to teach it? In history? I was in history in high school. We didn't learn anything really about World War I, and that was really an economic war that dealt with economics. It was highly how the German mark, how it fell and what ended it. I mean, what was the decisive battle that ended World War I? There really wasn't one. It was all economics. But that's not taught in school, and they wouldn't get into something like that. So in econ, and Karen Rybacek brought it up, is the number a trillion. People really have a hard time comprehending numbers, and especially numbers that big, what that number means. So if I look at it, that number, and I look at a thing like seconds, if I look at a second, I can understand and comprehend what a second is. I can look at it right there. It tells me what a second is. So if I can add up 1 trillion seconds, how many years does that equal? This is a good way of looking at it. How many years is 1 trillion seconds?
2 minutes.
It's about 33,000 years. That's how big that number is. People cannot comprehend these things when they talk about it. And in econ and economics, people do not get numbers and how things compound and how interest works and all those things. And that class was vital to me in high school. I struggled in high school. I didn't do good. That was the one class I liked. That was the one class I excelled in because it was actually like an applied science where I could get it. And we're talking about getting rid of that? Shame on you guys. Anyway, thanks.
Thank you, Paul. Our final speaker this evening, Dave Richmond. Welcome, Dave. Thanks for being here.
It's taped down today, otherwise I would bring it up and show it. It says, please respect one another. I think that's a lesson that the board needs to start following, the administration is definitely not following, and the community needs to follow, myself included. I'm not throwing stones in glass houses, but respect one another. It's been missed. The signs behind me probably would have come down under the pre-holiday because there's colors in it or may have been a miscommunication. This whole sign policy is a tidbit, a small piece. There is a bigger problem, and it's accountability and respect. When members of the community or parents email members of the board or members of administration, I don't expect a response. Maybe I shouldn't have any expectations whatsoever. But the board members, you ran on a 3-year term that you want to do what's best for the community. That doesn't mean check out when the going gets tough. And if it doesn't fit what you want to do right now, it's okay. It's okay to let someone else run. We have elections coming up. There will be opportunities. I expect board members to participate, to show up, to respond, and be involved in the community. There was an example over the holiday where a board member who's not here tonight, and I'll be more than happy to speak with him as I've exchanged emails with him, who hasn't shown up at a school to my knowledge and from my studies have shown, but managed to show up at Summit View to view the signs, make sure they were down so it matched his way. That's not a school board member that I think should be on this board. He's broken so many different policies. The policy thing has changed so much on the website because you guys are in the process of changing it. So it's hard for me to keep track. But as a school board members, you have to hold each other responsible. It's not the administration's job. They've got a lot on their plate. You've got to hold your members responsible. And if they're out of line, call them out in public. Remember, this is from the school board and the website. Remember, always, that their first and greatest concern must be for the educational welfare of the students attending the public schools. Public schools, not school board members who don't have children, who have children who are not even in the district, attending the district. That isn't having the best interest at heart. I'm a child of educators, both rural and urban. My mother was a speech pathologist, speech therapist was the old term, for 30-some years. My son is going to be a teacher soon, and I had a chance to speak with him here over the holiday. And Waukesha is on his list. He has no interest in being involved in this district.
2 minutes.
That's a graduate of this district. I was really disappointed to hear it, and I asked some questions about it. He said, I just don't like what I see. And he's at a distance. Wants to establish his own way, that's fine. But this administration and this board needs to start taking accountability and taking responsibility. And when asked to speak on a subject by the board, the administration should respond accordingly. When asked to present data-driven facts, present them. Don't pass the buck. Now, in terms of a bigger picture, the left wants this, the right wants this. Diversity means nothing. Diversity means a lot. Shut up and teach, back when I was a kid. Our way, or you're crazy. We're open to everyone, except if you disagree with us. I have tried to make myself, I don't want to brag or sound like I'm bragging or boasting, but accountability needs to be brought to this board. And it can't be by grouping with members of the left or members of the right. It has to deal with communication. That's a lost art at this point. I may not agree with other speakers, but I respect the fact that they'll come up here and speak, and hopefully they respect me. They may not agree with me, but there's a respect factor. I don't think there's a respect factor right now from the administration or from the board overall. I spoke and gave this quote, "You can't stay neutral on a moving train." Howard Zinn. I'm going to say that every time because that applies. The other one, it's okay to learn and grow. Muhammad Ali was quoted as saying, "The man who views the world at 50, the same as he did at 20, has wasted 30 years of his life."
Your time is up.
Take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Okay. Moving on with our meetings this evening, we go to our action items section. And the first item is approval of the Teaching and Learning Committee meeting minutes from December 7th, 2021.
For approval?
Yes.
I'll second.
Thank you. Mr. Baumgar and Ms. Roddy for seconding. Discussions, questions, additions, deletions on the minutes? Seeing none? All in favor of our minutes from December 7th, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Passes, Stacy, 5-0. The next item that we had for action was approval of overnight field trips. And we did have one that we were going to be looking at this evening. However, that has been tabled until further notice. So we will hold that for another time. Okay. Discussion and information items on the agenda this evening. The first one is the renewal of middle school science iQuest. We have two presenters, or we have more than two. We have Rachel Herman, our Director of Secondary Learning. We have Erica Yoss, our Science Environmental Ed K through 12 Coordinator, as well as some other guests, which I'm sure the two of you will introduce. Welcome to our committee, and we look forward to your presentation this evening.
Thank you for having us. So you're actually not going to hear from me a lot tonight. I'm just really going to introduce the team here. So I'm going to introduce Erica. She'll introduce the teachers who are here. And again, we're here to talk about iQuest, which is the middle school resource that we're looking to use to support our science curriculum. So I'll have Erica and her team take it away as they've been doing the heavy lifting around this work.
Hi, so I'm Erica Yoss. I am the K-12 Science Environmental Ed District Coach, and I have Heidi Prescott, who is a 6th grade science teacher and math teacher at Les Paul, and Lucia Torres, who is an 8th grade dual language science teacher at Horning, both who have been using this iQuest program that we have. So for the courses that we're looking for some adoption materials, it would be at Butler, Horning, and Les Paul, those three middle schools, Science 6, 7, 8, as well as dual language Science 6, 7, and 8, which is about 2,000 students annually that are in these courses. Our courses are integrated and module-based in our curriculum, which means that every year students receive a unit on earth science, a unit on chemistry, a unit on physics, and a unit on life science. So they get a taste of each of those each year, and it spirals in the curriculum.
I'm just going to chime in. STEM is not included in this as they, with their charter and being multi-age, use a different resource called Cpop. And so they already, again, still aligned to the standards, but they're not a part of this process.
So the reason we are looking at an adoption is that our 6-year digital access is up at the end of the year. So we needed to either renew or look at something different. Our current textbook and materials meet our needs, have shown to be successful, but we did want to make sure that we explored all the options out there to ensure that we have the best fit for our students. So we looked at all the different neighboring districts and districts of our size just to see what people are using. You'll see that it is very different everywhere. Some people are module-based like us, some are earth space in 6th grade, life in 7th, and just have different variety of things that they do. Some are using iQuest like we are, so we decided to look into all those programs. We also looked at Cpop, HMH Dimensions, Elevate Science, FOSS, and Amplify, which seem to be the top programs that exist for our students. Cpop is what STEM Saratoga uses. But for us to be able to use this, we needed to match our curriculum that we currently have. It needed to support the curriculum, the scope and sequence. It had to align to the state and national standards, and because we use it in our dual language program, it had to be available in Spanish. And that is a very big priority for us because in K through 8, Spanish is the language it is instructed in science. It is fully in Spanish, so we need to make sure we had that. And iQuest, or Activate Learning is the company, met all of our needs. It was the only company that offered completely in Spanish, and it was the only one that actually followed the scope and sequence of our curriculum. So if we tried to move to something else, our curriculum wouldn't align to it. But it wasn't that we just felt like, oh, it's the only one that matches, we better keep with it. It's shown really successful. Since we've adopted it, our data on the forward exam has gone up pretty high. It went from 43% to 52% proficient in advanced, including a raise in data even last year, which was pretty unheard of, and we were really proud that we could show that students are still gaining science skills in the areas of analyzing data, evaluating models, and scientific investigations, and which is what this curricular resource does. It focuses on those science skills and not necessarily just on memorizing content. It really has students looking at information, problem solving, and really blends literacy really well into it, which helped this data go up. We do want to continue going through the process of the adoption, even though we do have this as our ideal resource. So we will continue to gather feedback from students and teachers, as well as we are lucky enough that DPI has an instructional review tool for science that we will go through with the iQuest resource as well and ensure that it meets all of the standards that DPI has stated is important for a science program to have. But we feel really confident with what we have right now, and I know these teachers can speak to that as well.
Questions, comments? Mr. Baumgart?
Just a clarification for me, because I'm not sure I followed it. The Spanish language part of it, you said it was predominantly available in the QWE,
In iQuest, yes.
iQuest, but the one, are we talking about two different programs here? The iQuest that you have today is spelled different?
I think it was just a misprint. So
So it is the
it's
same
the exact
one.
same program. Yes,
That's the
we
answer.
want to
That's it.
continue using what we're using, yes.
Thank you, that clears it up.
Yeah. It's spelled funky, so it just sometimes it autocorrects on us.
Okay, because, nowadays, that could be a word.
That is very accurate.
Thank you, that's all I need to know.
Mr. Como?
Could you go back to the last slide? Yeah, that's, one more, yeah. That one, yeah. So the data here, did that include both Spanish-speaking students?
It's all of our students at the 3 middle schools that use this program, yes.
Do you have that broken out? Are they similar between those two cohorts or not?
So I don't have it with me right now. So if we're looking at students in the dual language program versus EL students, that data would be different, and I could get that for you. I just didn't bring all of that broken down subgroup data with me today.
I was just wondering if we were having success with
Our subgroups are
multiple
generally going up in all of those. I can't give you exact numbers right now,
Sure.
But they have mostly gone up as well.
And maybe that could be broken out and put in our update for this weekend.
Sure.
Yeah, just to follow up to
Dr.
Mr.
Piazza.
Como's question. So that does not include STEM?
No, because they don't use our resource.
Okay. And I have another question, if I could continue. iQuest and Cpop, are they both elementary and middle school, or is iQuest middle school only?
iQuest is middle school only, it's 6
Okay.
through 8. Cpop is also 6 through 8. The Randall STEM uses the same curriculum that the rest of the district does, but they do also have some Project Lead the Way things that they use to supplement.
Okay. And is there an opportunity, and I'm looking at this both from a budget and outcomes perspective, but is there an opportunity to consolidate if iQuest is working well for other middle schools? Is that something that STEM would consider, or is Cpop something that's so unique to STEM that we can't move away from it?
Yeah, we have had some conversations. Right now, their licensure at STEM, they have a 6-year licensure that they've already purchased, and so we'd have to wait until their licensure expires. One of the things that Cpop offers for them is the way that they sequence it caters to their multi-age approach. And so that has been a huge benefit of that Cpop versus iQuest. So when Erica mentioned that scope and sequence that iQuest offers, right now STEM has come across some hurdles being multi-age in following that same scope and sequence. And so we are looking at that. They are still coming to the table. So the STEM teachers come to the table for all of these discussions. We have some STEM teachers who have used iQuest and continue to want to be a part of that conversation. So it's not off the table, but right now they do have to finish off their licensure that they've already paid for.
Thank you.
And I will say, we are only looking for a 3-year renewal of this, so we match up with our curriculum alignment year, so that when we say, okay, now it's time to look at the curricular scope and sequence, we are ready to look at other options that might not have fit currently, but could fit in the future.
I think I would add that one of the other pieces that we've had some discussion around, especially around these results, over the course of the last few months and going into the next few months, you continually hear from me, right, about here is this curricular adoption, and we're looking at this curricular resource. We're seeing a department that has adopted a curricular resource that is aligned to state standards, and we're seeing teachers implement that resource with fidelity, right? It's not homegrown, it's not curated by them, and then we're seeing direct impact on student achievement. And so I think this is a great example of what we're hoping to see, right, happen in our other departments, and I draw your attention to that because, again, that's something that I think parallels itself to the other curricular revisions that you've heard about in past updates as well as in future updates.
And as a teacher that is using I'm a math teacher, and so we were given our state standards, and the math teachers were asked to come up with common assessments, and we did. But then our actual curriculum that we deliver to the students every day is dependent upon each staff member. So when I leave, my material is there, like on Blackboard or whatever, but the next staff member that comes in might not know what I'm saying in my little side notes or whatever. This iQuest, I just started this year with science, and I can't speak to my kids' success or failure compared to my colleague Julie Nieswag, who is a science teacher, but I've been able to do it. I can look through the notes, look through the teacher guide, talk to her a little bit, and then I get in front of the kids and I can deliver it. And if we're going to keep asking teachers to do like we did this year with Butler, Horning, and Les Paul all going to these smaller teams, and teachers are teaching multiple subject areas, you need something like this. I couldn't physically come in each day, have to draw up a science curriculum while also drawing up a math curriculum. It's just not feasible, and especially to cover classes and all those other things that we're doing during COVID. So anyway, for what it's worth, I've been amazed by it, and I had the kids at the end of their first assessment add comments to what they felt the strength or failure of the program was. And I mean, these kids weren't coached to say it. They were like, I love that I had so much time to think about how do I see the colors that I see in front of me, or how that light shines in a singular straight line. And I mean, 6th graders saying those kind of comments, Anyway, so I thought it was wonderful. But.
Anything else? Good. Thank you very much for the update and for answering all of our questions. Looks like you're well on your way to success with all this, and I'm sure will keep us updated as needed. So,
Yep, we'll be back with a cost projection and a discussion item again, I believe in April.
sounds good.
Thanks.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
Nice day for the next one. Thank you.
Ms. Torres had it easy tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad.
You can email me. Thank you.
You get me again.
That's okay. Our second discussion information item tonight relates to the adoption of advanced placement science textbooks for AP Physics 1 and 2 and AP Chemistry. We have Rachel Herman, our Director of Secondary Learning, and Erica Yoss, our Science Environmental Ed K-12 Coordinator with us, as well as a guest that I'm sure you'll introduce. Thank you for being here. We look forward to what you have to share with us this evening.
So again, I'm just going to basically introduce, I should have mentioned this during the last presentation, something that you'll notice as well that we're going to try and do in our updates. We are using a consistent slide deck so that as we continue to go through textbook adoptions and curricular revision, you get the same information each time. So you are guaranteed to hear the same things about each textbook adoption, so there's no surprises. So it might look a little bit monotonous, but hopefully that consistency provides you with, again, you know what you're going to get with each of these presentations. So again, now Erica again is going to introduce her team member and what they've been doing with AP.
So I have Steve Ramtham with me today. He is an AP Physics teacher at South, and we are here to discuss the adoption of a new AP Physics textbook. So this textbook adoption would go for both AP Physics 1 and AP Physics 2. This is an elective that's primarily juniors and seniors, but as we've had more students who take biology in 8th grade, we have some sophomores who are using this as well. And AP Physics 1 does count as our physics graduation requirement. So that's why you see the numbers are pretty high. We have about 250 students per year throughout the 3 high schools who use this. eAchieve does not use the same resource as us, though they have been invited to come to a lot of the same meetings and have the same conversations with us. They choose to use their own resource for this. So again, same situation, 6-year digital access is expiring, and the College Board requires us to have an active and updated textbook for all AP courses. So we are here to continue that process. Our current textbook meets the needs, shows successful, the teachers like it, the students like it, but we want to continue to explore the options just to make sure that what we have is the best fit. So we looked at what the neighboring districts are using. You'll see night is a pretty common theme, and that is what we currently use. You'll notice textbooks are named by, we refer to them by their authors because they're all the same title. It's just physics or chemistry. So we just refer to them by their main author. You'll notice like Arrowhead and Kettle Moraine have 2 authors. That is because they buy separate textbooks for both AP Physics 1 and AP Physics 2. We have found that is superfluous, and the one textbook is enough and is much more budget conscious. So we will keep with our one textbook. After speaking to other districts, connecting with other experts at the AP workshops and the College Board list of text, we have decided on these 2 textbooks, the College Physics by Atkina and College Physics by Knight. They are highly recommended books. They follow the scope and sequence of AP1 and AP2. And even made adjustments for the way that the test was adjusted over the last year. They kind of took a big chunk of stuff out. So those books are keeping up with that. So this is the updated version. And because we get the digital access, the nice part about that is that it's constantly updated. So it's not, if we adopt it now and 5 years later it's changed, we're in trouble. We buy their digital version so we can keep up with those AP test changes. So our pilot process is we'll take these 2 textbooks. Obviously, we are using one already. But the other one, we will do the formal pilot of a unit in February. We will have team members from all 3 high schools, Amber Hansen at West, Greta Voigt at North, and obviously Steve here at South. So they will do the same unit. Then we will come together and have discussions over what the benefits were. We'll seek feedback from students, and again, we'll go through that Wisconsin instructional tool for science to make sure that we're covering not only what College Board says, but what DPI thinks is recommended for that.
Questions, comments? Dr. Piasek.
Thank you. So AP Physics, I think, is notably the hardest AP test, or at least the one that has the lowest number.
It's got a high fail rate, yeah.
Lowest passing? High fail rate?
Yes, nationally.
Yeah.
How do our students do on the AP exams in physics?
I can let you speak to your students specifically.
I think I would like them to do better every year until they all get 5s. I won't be happy. I don't have exact numbers. I don't, from year to year, kind of blends. I think my last year was the best year I ever had, and I can't remember exactly what the number was, but I always feel like they should be better. But it's the least passed AP test that they have.
I'm aware of that.
So,
I think I took it once. And it was
I don't understand why it is that way, but.
It would, maybe just for Rachel, would be helpful to see those. I know, like with the
I have
forward-
them if you,
Okay.
yeah, I can send them to you. I mean, yeah.
And it's more just informational. It's not to point out that there's any issue.
Yep.
And then just a question about AP Physics 2. How is that being offered at all 3 high schools?
It is offered. It just comes down to, do we have enough students who enroll in it to run the course? So some years we don't have enough.
And so then students just have no option for it, or can they?
They can take it by
Sit in on other-
e-achieve as an option.
Okay.
Could they travel to another high school?
I mean, they could, yeah.
No, within the district.
I'm sure they could within the district, as long as we could figure out how to work in their schedule. I'm sure it would be an option.
We have done that in the past. We've done the streaming options, I know with Calc.
And I think actually we have
Done
students from
that.
North streaming into West this year for
Correct.
AP2.
Yeah.
I would assume there's at least a full class or almost a full class at South, just given the engineering academy? No?
I can look, I don't believe we are running Physics 2 in any of our face-to-face high schools. But like I said, we do have lots of options if we have the numbers to run it, that we make it work. With our technology now especially, we're able to stream kids in, and we've done that with several classes across our district. So should we have the numbers, we do have the ability to run it.
So the obvious benefit of having one
One
set of
book is good,
materials
yes.
applies across the board. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Coleman.
So I'm real curious, and maybe you can't answer this question yet because we're early in the process, but, the titles, I appreciate college physics is the primary title, but it looks like, so the second part of the title, explore and apply for one book, and a strategic approach, are they really very different?
Certain things seem to be very similar, and then other things are different. The author of this book that we don't currently have kind of has a thing called modeling physics. I don't want to bore you, but it's kind of an approach, and it's very heavy on that. So their strategy is through this modeling physics approach, which is a little different than maybe what most people have encountered of taking a physics course. The book we currently use may be a bit more traditional, so this one is a little bit more, I don't know if it's like bad or worse, it's just different, a different way to look at it.
But there are true differences. It's not just a tweak of the title.
I've been through this a couple of times with looking at books, so you'll find one, you really like something that this author does, but wow, they really, circular motion doesn't seem to work for me. And you can you can't find perfect, so you just try to find the one that seems to fit the way your teaching ability and style works best with the book. Again, not better or worse, just different.
Sure.
And, there's not a universal way of like, I don't really want to get into the nuts and bolts of it, but the one that kind of teachers have kind of maybe been brought up with, like nomenclature and things like that they're familiar with, whereas maybe another author went a different way with it, so it doesn't seem as familiar to the teacher, and it's a little different. So you're just, you're not sure if you want to go down that path and make those changes. And
Sure.
again, not better or worse, just different.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that insight. I do. Thank you, Steve.
Anything else?
I just want to clarify, I did look, we are running Physics 2 at Waukesha West, and we do have some students who are streaming in, so from other schools. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Nice to know. Okay, team, thank you very much for being here. We look forward to the results closer to the end of the year, and thank you again for your time this evening. We appreciate it.
We're not done. One more.
Chemistry.
Oh, chemistry, that's right, yes.
These really heavy ones.
Yes.
The big ones.
Not much works without chemistry.
Maybe I was intentionally trying to forget.
Play on words.
You know, I come with the really heavy
Yeah.
ones too.
We should,
The biggest ones.
when we get to action, Erica, we should parcel these out for the agenda, though, for the board.
Yeah.
Just talking out.
Okay, yes, sounds good. Okay, welcome chemistry. Okay, so any introductions you have, Erica?
Yes, so I have Christina
Yep, awesome.
Schaefer
Thank you.
with me from West. So AP Chemistry, junior and senior science elective. We average around 50 students per year across the 3 high schools. The same as physics applies. If we don't have enough students to run it, it doesn't run, but there's the option of traveling or streaming or e-achieve, which students sometimes partake in. But we do run it at most of the schools at least every other year, so it is running. The same rationale, we have a 6-year digital access expiring. College Board requires us to have a text. But what's different from physics is that we are going for sure a different route. We just didn't feel that the Masterson text that we are using was really connected anymore to the AP test as well as it could be. It was much more of a college textbook and not an AP textbook. So we needed to go through the full process. So we went and spoke with other teachers, looked around, not only the neighboring areas, but other big districts. And Brown and Zoomdall are the 2 big ones that people use. That's nationwide what people are using in their textbooks. And those are the 2 that we are going to be considering. They both come highly recommended. They're both very similar in terms of content and organization and units. They're both directly aligned to the AP test. They are different publishers, so the online resources that we get for them will be different, and that will be a big part of the pilot process when we get to that. But they're both highly regarded AP chemistry texts. So we will do that pilot process starting in February as well, but with them being both 2 new texts, they will have to pilot both of them for a unit each. We'll have Christina from West, Kelly Ludke from North, and Tim Malk from South. We'll gather the student feedback, we'll gather the instructional feedback through that review tool, and just really kind of dig into the resources. And we have the publishers coming in to show us their digital resources soon. Same for AP Physics, I forgot to mention that, just so we can really see what students will have access to, because those practice resources are very important for students as they're preparing for that test. But that is where we are. We feel really confident with these 2. We just have to decide which one is the best.
Questions, comments, Bill? Mr. Baumgart.
Both of these are existing, expiring in the end of the
Yes.
school year.
Yes.
Now, you're getting close, aren't you? I mean, when are you going to make the decision?
Well, so we come back in April for the discussion item and then May for the action item.
And that provides enough time for the next year's teachers to get prepared for this?
Yep, because once you purchase, you'll have instantaneous access to and the curriculum doesn't change, it's just a different resource that they'll
Okay.
have to use. But yes, they'll have it by summer.
So we also all have copies of both of them that we can preview now, so there's time
Okay,
to
so
prepare.
that, the I don't know how many teachers are involved, because you only have 50 of the chemistry.
Just 3 at each school.
So you've got.
And they all have the texts already.
Okay, so, all right, I think that answers my question better.
Yep.
Appreciate this. I want you- Yeah.
Yeah, and when we come back, Erica will present we call it the professional development plan. So with any type of purchase like this, we do develop a plan of how we're going to implement the resource. And so especially when it comes to AP, we do everything from sending our teachers to those AP summer institutes, which we've talked about in the past, to building in summer curricular hours for them to look at those resources and dive more deeply into them. So we'll talk about that at our April update, what the plan will be for that professional development.
Thank you.
Dr. Piazzi?
Just a clarification then, so this is going into students' hands in February. Would that be all of our AP Chem students?
For the pilot, all of the classes will pilot using it, yes.
Okay.
Looks good.
All right.
Do you ever, when you pilot a textbook like the new one in February, do you ever utilize the other one, or, I mean, is that part of the pilot to stick with the text during a specific amount of time and not veer from that?
The goal is to stick with it
Yes.
unless we notice there's a gap. And
Okay.
obviously, we wouldn't want to harm our students' ability to pass the test, so we would supplement if we needed to, yes.
Sure, sounds good. Anything else? Great job.
Thank
Thank you very much. We look forward to having you back later in the school year. Have a good night. Our final discussion information item this evening is high school emotional learning, Character Strong update. We have Luke Pinion, our Director of Student Services, and also Maria Diamato Cucci. She's the Assistant Principal at South High School. So I want to welcome both of you, and thank you for being here tonight, too.
Actually, Maria couldn't be with us tonight, unfortunately. We do have Erica. I'll let her introduce herself, and although Maria is here and likely watching us right now. So hello, Maria. We'll be missing you.
Hi, I'm Erica Burns. I'm a math teacher at Waukesha South, and I'm also a homeroom captain, which is my interaction with the Character Strong.
Thank you. This is our second time in front of you talking about Character Strong specifically. Just as a reminder, social emotional learning is something that's embedded in everything we do, right? It doesn't stand alone in one lesson, doesn't stand alone in a series of lessons, but we know we need a space and a place with content that's aligned to the state competencies and that's evidence-based. Just to refresh you on the background, we are a second step district in terms of a universal social emotional curriculum for K through 8th grade. That's a very well-known, used across the country for social emotional learning curriculum. We have not had any evidence-based state-aligned content at the high school level, which is where this comes into play. We also know our 9th grade students have the highest number of office discipline referrals, or ODRs, so that was really the concentration of this effort. We also know that a lot of lessons that are being done in homeroom or advisory have been self-created. Again, really well-intended, well-meaning, still getting at, the types of skills we're trying to enforce in students, but they aren't evidence-based, nor are they aligned explicitly to the state competencies. So the intention was to start replacing some of those self-created lessons with these. And we also know, of course, that students have been reporting more rise in mental health concerns and behaviors. And then again, to remind you, in 2021, we had a district team that met, over 20 different staff, exploring different resources, had a few different agencies give presentations and demonstrations. Character Strong was unanimous and the most preferred to explore further this year. Character Strong does have a full scope and sequence. They actually have some at middle level too as well now, but they have a 9th through 12th curriculum. We've been really focusing the most on the 9th grade this year. We want to go slow and really intentional through this. And then there are some other grade levels just kind of exploring what's in there. There are over 100 different engaging plug-and-play activities. A lot of the complaints you get when you start doing social emotional learning at the high school level is that they feel very childish or they seem very elementary. That's not the feedback that we see in this type, in Character Strong. It's actually really engaging engaging and more enjoyable for high school students. They can be personalized. There's Spanish translation for all content, and very little teacher prep needed to deliver these lessons. They are aligned to the Wisconsin SEL competencies, and they were developed with CASEL, which is the Collaborative for Academic and Social Emotional Learning, which is a nationally known organization that vets and does research around social emotional learning. They've also partnered with the DPI back when the DPI created the competencies. These lessons can be delivered both virtually as well as face-to-face for students should we need to switch.
Okay, as you can see on the screen, those are the skills targeted. And as Luke mentioned, they're broken up by grade level. So all grade levels hit all of these, but a student that would go through the sequence 9 through 12 wouldn't have a repeating lesson. All right, I'm here to kind of just give you an overview of what a sample lesson would be like. So when you do a character strong lesson, the first thing is always a community builder, and they are fantastic at this because they just have such a depth of resource here. It's things teachers would do for their students anyways. I mean, you know the drill, what would you rather do, go on a beach vacation or a mountain vacation? But there's just so much choice here, and Character Strong is always updating them. They just did a new one. A word jumble, not that you need to know that. Okay. All right, when it gets into the lesson then, I feel like it always starts with a reflective question in which the students are sort of forced to self-reflect, and they do some writing around a written prompt, and this way they have written some of their thoughts down before they meet in a small group. When they meet in a small group, and you can see it's on the screen there, but they always give them choice, so it'll say read these questions and respond to the one that most resonates with you based on what you wrote down, and then they share out in a small group. Sometimes there's videos that kids watch other high school students modeling their thinking, and then they're always pulled back together to whole group. And I do want to stress that whole group or small group, the resource gives them sentence stems for kids to be helpful on how to share their feelings. The resource as a whole is extremely reflective. I think throughout the whole thing, what they're looking for is for kids to just think about their thinking or think about situations or, as I said, think about their thinking. So I think it's very reflective, but the ending is always kind of a main reflection for them to think about. And then sometimes it'll give them a go forward, during your week, think about your thinking, what is your self-voice when you're doing something you're really proud of? What is your self-voice when you're doing something you're afraid of, and things like that. We've done, I'm speaking from South, it's used at the advisories in the high school, but I can't speak with fidelity to, how often they've used it. We've used it enough times that we've asked for teacher feedback now. I'm not going to read this slide to you, I'll just say that the first two bullets are student engagement and participation, which is high, and that's always a positive. The last one, lessons are well written. The transitions throughout the lesson have been properly scripted and create a gentle flow. I cannot agree with that more. They have kids writing and then going to small group and going from small group to whole group, and there's no teacher prep that needs to transition them through all of that. It's extremely well done. Most importantly, we ask for student feedback. Lessons have given me takeaways I can use in my life. I mean, that's the goal, right? That's the good stuff. Useful and reflective, the kids like the videos. Instead of the small groups, we do the group work as a homeroom. I think the thing I want to mention about the last reflection there is it shows that the resource is very flexible, and you can, personalize it for the group of students in front of you.
Thank you. So in regard to some next steps, of course, continue piloting the lessons with that really heavy emphasis on 9th grade this year, while also diving deeper into some of those other grade levels just to see where it scaffolds up. Continue gathering teacher and student feedback about the lesson. And then, of course, return to the board if there was consensus for more of a universal 9th grade application where we would start then planning to kind of make sure all students across all schools in 9th grade could receive the full scope and sequence. We would certainly then bring back a little bit of a deeper dive to what those 25 or so lessons entail in 9th grade. So when we come back a third time, that you'll get more information in terms of that level of analysis. And then, of course, always crosswalking. We've already begun this process, but with what we already do, with academic and career planning lessons and any other homeroom activities or self-created lessons that have been created. We don't want to replicate lessons. We want to make sure we're working smarter and not duplicating anything. and we welcome your questions.
Mr. Baumgart.
I like what I'm hearing, but I'm a little bit confused as to how this fits together for the student's week or day or whatever it is. And then, and I think we were just leading into it, does it reappear in the classroom situations that the kids are facing?
So I can speak, this really flows because students are receiving second step from 4K through eighth grade. It is a continuation of some of what they're already working on in terms of social emotional skills. Erica might be able to talk a little bit more specifically about how this fits in at South during the actual schedule.
Okay, yeah. So they would do these during their advisories, which is Monday for a 20-minute lesson, and they have like a specific homeroom teacher then that's delivering this. And then to your question.
They're still doing that.
Oh, yeah. But then to your question, like that, how does this go into the other classes? I mean, those teachers are classroom teachers too. So on Mondays specifically, that is always a follow-up, I think, just at the beginning, kind of a break into the classroom as well. So I think it does bleed over.
And I'd like to add to that too, if we get to the point where we are recommending or we feel we have consensus to, ask the board, can we deliver this 9th grade with all 25 lessons? The beauty in that then would be that we'd have a really clear structured path that this fits in through the year, and all students would be working on community building, stress and coping at this week or at this time in the school year, so that, continuity of the content would be there across the system.
Thank you.
Mr. Como.
Yeah, thank you. Erica, good to see you.
Good to see you too.
You're one of the greatest examples of a stellar teacher in our district, and I really do appreciate you being here tonight, and I really trust your opinion quite a bit as we've known each other through the years. So once these lessons are taught, and then the kids go out into their classes and they're growing up and they're learning, do you have any examples that you might be able to share with us on how you've seen this program impact, students, obviously without naming names?
Well, one thing I can say is that this program is really new. So I haven't been able to see, other than this fall is when it's been used.
Sure. So maybe you need more time.
Maybe I need more time, but I do want to say that I am not a homeroom deliverer of the content.
Okay.
Okay, because I am the homeroom captain that organizes it. So I have students, though, that come into my math classroom, and we talk about the things that they've been working on there, and even on previous lessons. So I do know that it's not lost, and that, to me, is pretty substantial.
Sure. Well, maybe if you're back in a few months, you can ponder that and
yeah, for sure.
keep your eyes open, or just give me a buzz too sometime, and we can talk.
Okay.
If you see some.
Because I know that you have a new granddaughter.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
We can talk on her too.
Okay.
Dr. Piazza.
Thank you. This is a really important area, and I think, I suspect there are students that really engage, and there are some that might think this is not worth their time, just to be frank. How do we keep all the kids engaged in this? Are there strategies for that?
I think if you were to ask Character Strong that, they would say that's built right into how we design the lessons, and that's why you get some of the feedback that you're seeing from the students, is that this is way more enjoyable than sitting through, no offense, physics or chemistry. In terms of, it feels different, right? It's a very different feel of receiving and having these conversations, and a teacher facilitate this level of a conversation. And again, they're used to it, but I'm sure, to your point, right, there are going to be students that disengage, and I would imagine, I can't speak from the teacher level, but they would elicit those same strategies when those students disengage from other content areas.
I think what I do want to say, being realistic but also responding to this program allows for a lot of feedback and dialogue. So even that student that you think is disengaged is in the room hearing this dialogue. And that's the part that I think is still powerful.
Yeah. I think that's just the reality of what the program is trying to do, is that you're going to have a mixture of engagement. And just a follow-up question about the professional development side of this, because these are areas that don't necessarily come naturally, or maybe in some cases are more appropriate for counseling and psychology and social work, et cetera. So is it standardized training for teachers? Do they kind of pick and choose the things that they want to get trained in, or is it structured?
So it'd be two different ways of really delivering PD. One is bringing Character Strong to us, right? And like say, so Summer Institute before teachers start, that would be one pathway where they're actually consistently training all, ninth grade or homeroom teachers. The other is through student services. They're really, our school counselors, psychologists, social workers become really familiar, and the example we have of that is Second Step, right, at the middle school especially, is they really believe in it and become sort of the masters of that to support, go model lessons, and help teachers that might not feel comfortable. So kind of hitting it at two different angles there.
Okay, thank you. And then I have one follow-up question.
Go ahead.
Just related to the ninth grade piece. Obviously, Character Strong is aimed at high school students. Having an 8th grader and a 10th grader, is there any opportunity to do this earlier or to introduce some of this the middle school level where there seems to also be...
That's where Second Step would come into play. Like I said, Character Strong has developed a middle school program, but it would be very similar to some of the content. So we'd have to do a little bit more digging into that in terms of, is that in addition to Second Step in the SEL curriculum at the middle school level that's already been running, or are we replicating and duplicating our efforts by bringing that down into the middle school?
They seem different from what I can see. It seems like the Character Strong is really focused on just values and self-confidence and engagement with others. And obviously, again, it's for a different age group.
Yep. I would say there's certainly opportunity there. It would just be a matter of like anything, where does it fit? And then being really conscious and thoughtful about how you go about fitting something if there was the right place for it.
Thank you.
Other comments, questions? So was it by accident, Erica, that you were here this evening?
No.
No.
We wanted her here, especially because she's been South in general has really championed this effort around social emotional learning. Erica has been amazing, both last year through, the exploration phase of deciding, where are we going to look, as well as this year leading the homeroom teachers and developing that. So we wanted her with us. And next, when we come back to you, we hope to bring a few more who've been delivering it and can speak more at that level as well.
It's always good to hear it from the ground level, so we appreciate it. Thank you very much for the presentation this evening.
Thank you.
And for answering our questions and helping us move forward in this area. We appreciate it. We are now moving on to our agenda to the area of other business. Any recommendations from any committee members for future meetings? Dr. Piazza.
Just one, we've had a lot of discussion obviously about pilots lately, and what might be helpful, you may already have this, Jody, is a map around all the pilots that we're doing. I feel like in some cases we're hitting a lot of high school students in a lot of different classes, but it may just be because we're seeing the pilots here and not necessarily seeing how they spread out among the grades in the classrooms. I assumed you did.
Visual.
Yeah, if you could maybe just share that with us, that would be helpful.
Anything else? Okay, thank you, everyone. This concludes and adjourns our meeting for this evening. The next Teaching and Learning Committee meeting will be held on Tuesday, February 1st, 6 p.m. here in the boardroom. Thank you, to all of you for your participation and involvement this evening. And I wish each and every one of you a good evening and Happy New Year. Thank you very much.